Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the youth sports community.
A community striving to enhance youth sports.
I'm Taylor Medic.
I'm Sean Connaughton.
And I'm Matt Maw.
Thank you for joining us today. The youth sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Maw Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit nuance.hockey.
Maw Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton.
This episode is produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration is provided by Earthwater. We are very excited to have Anthony Reid joining the community for today's podcast episode.
Anthony is a grade 4 teacher dedicated to developing tomorrow's leaders. He believes that there is greatness in all his students, and it is his job to help them see that within themselves.
By encouraging and challenging his athletes to work hard, persevere, and continue learning, Anthony is giving them the ability to reach their full potential.
Outside of work, Anthony is a hockey instructor, coach, as well as a spin instructor. He still enjoys playing sports and working out in his home gym so that he can keep active with his 3 amazing kids.
I've personally coached numerous sessions, both on and off the ice with Anthony. I've also had the privilege of visiting his classroom, and he has become a great friend over the years. Tony, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and welcome to the youth sports community.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Well, when we say youth sports, what are some of your earliest memories as a young child in your youth sports?
Yeah, growing up, my dad was really instrumental in getting all of us as kids into sports. He was a big believer in it, and probably my earliest memory will be, I grew up in Toronto. We had a local rink, outdoor rink, and he would take us up there and get us skating. He got me into hockey, and he's from Ireland, so he knows. He came to Canada, and his experience with sports has been rugby, which is what he played in Ireland. And coming to Canada, he just thought, well, you're gonna do what Canadians do, and he just put me into hockey and and other sports. But I remember specifically going up to the local rink, and he would love it. He'd just take us out there. Didn't really know anything about skating, put us on the ice and let us figure it out.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you remember roughly how old you were when you started getting out on the ODR?
Oh boy. I would have to. My earliest memory might be when I'm 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And that's a long time ago. So I have one distinct memory, and this would be more when I was a little bit older, but my dad, just for fun, I think, or to give us something to do when we're on the rink, and I was the oldest out of 3, he would just, he'd say to me, right, go around the rink, I'm going to time you on my watch. And he would time me, and he would tell me how long it took, and then he'd say, I think you can go faster. And then I would try it again, and I think for him, standing there watching me, my sister and my brother, he needed something to do, and this probably, gave him some purpose. And also I was game for it. Sure, I'll go around and see how fast I can go around the rink. And, so I would say around that age, we had other rinks in our neighborhood nearby where it was just on a grass field in a park, which now in Toronto, there's no way you could pull that off.
No, yeah.
But they do have places where they have tennis courts in the summertime, and then they just freeze it up there, and they can make an ODR there. So
Right.
yeah.
And was your dad ever able, like you said, obviously he grew up in Ireland. Did he ever get the skates on and get out there with you? I know it's hard to pick skating up at an older age, but was he ever out there with you guys?
Yeah, he tried a couple times. There was, so I played in Toronto. You play free at your local arena. I was at North Toronto Arena, and we had a selects hockey team there, and we had a father-son game one time, and he decided to come out. He had some skates, and yeah, I think he was just there because it was great to be out on the ice with your kid, but it was hard for him to move around. Really tricky, just trying to keep your balance first of all. So he did occasionally, but I think he was happy to let me watch me do the skating and let my brother and sister skate as well.
Clearly he was very supportive in your athletic endeavors.
Oh,
as a
yeah.
kid, for sure.
There was with my dad, I think his philosophy was, if I have my kids in sports, a couple things. Excellent bedtime, management
Yeah.
right there, right? My kids are going to be tired. But I also think, not that we were troublemakers, but I think he's like, this will keep them, giving them purpose. And my dad also just he loved being a dad. He loved taking us to do things. And, I wasn't just hockey. I was doing cross country skiing. I was doing downhill skiing in the winter. He would take us tobogganing in the wintertime. And then in the summer, while I was doing sailing with him, I got a little bit of tennis, but that never really stuck with me. My dad took me to play squash. We went camping, canoe camping, so we're portaging, and like he always had us doing stuff. And my mom was there along with him. She was always there, happy to go along camping, and he would take me to sports, and either my brother and sister would be at home with my mom, and they really worked well together in terms of, my mom believed in what my dad was doing, but he really wanted to drive that with all of us to keep us active.
I think it's a common theme that seems to come up a lot, is having both parents supporting in different roles definitely helps. Like, you need the whole family unit to be together for your hockey to work.
Yeah, I think in any family you need that. You need people who have a shared vision for the most part, as you can in a marriage. I mean, sometimes it's not always that way, but I think if there are certain things that they agree upon that you will support for your kid, I think it makes for a great environment for kids to be able to extend themselves beyond just maybe going to school every day and growing themselves in other ways, whether it's sports, whether it's going to be musical, maybe theatrical, even extra science, math, things like that. I think if you've got parents that are supportive, those kids might learn things about themselves, like skills that they don't realize they have, that parents are are cultivating in their children.
And you mentioned your siblings, brother and sister.
Yeah.
What was the age range with them, and how did they play into some of your youth sports experiences?
So my sister's a year and a half younger than me, and then my other brother's just over 5 years younger than me. So with my sports, well, growing up, my sister and I, when we were little, we just playing as kids in the house, we played together. And then when I got a bit older, my brother and I'd sometimes go to the ODR in the wintertime. But from about age 12 and onwards, I was away at boarding school. And so there was a big gap where I really wasn't, on a day-to-day basis with my siblings. And so, activity would be ski holidays. We do that in the summer. In the summer, actually, I did do sailing school with my sister. So we'd take the subway down to, a Lake Ontario, where we'd go and do sailing for about 6 summers.
Wow.
So there was some of that I did with her. And we were close enough in age, my sister and I, that, the friends that we made at sailing school or even around Toronto seemed to overlap, that there was more time her and I probably spent together at certain points of our life, just because we were in the same close in age, and did some similar things. My brother and I, we really they would be more like hockey.
Right. Yeah.
Was there a sibling rivalry? Like, everyone talks about having, competition with their brother and sisters. Did you have a lot of rivalry and competitions with them, or is it everyone pretty easygoing, getting along?
I thought we all got along pretty well. I wouldn't say there was ever sibling rivalry. Like, I don't think it was in my nature to want to, I'm going to try and just, take it out on, I'm going to dominate my sister and my brother. I wasn't like that. And I think I was more about, hey, come and play. Like, let's do this together. And I enjoyed their company and having them around. And for me to do it with somebody, I liked having them around. And, when my sister and I did sailing lessons, I mean, I would say as the oldest, my temperament was a little bit more, I was cautious. I wouldn't dive into things. And having my sister there just gave me a little bit more comfort level with what we're doing, or confidence that, at sailing, when we did sailing school in the summer, just put me a little bit at ease that maybe I probably, pushed myself or just engaged a lot quicker than if I'd been there without her.
Was sailing school like, were you away, or was this like at home, you'd go home every night and then?
Yeah, so basically my sister and I get up in the morning, we'd take the subway down to the lakefront, spend the day sailing, and then come back at the end of the day.
Sounds like you're very independent at a pretty young age. Obviously going to boarding school at 12, going to sailing school, like taking the subway out. You don't hear about, like I did some of those things myself as a younger person, but nowadays it's something very unheard of, I would say.
And I don't understand why that isn't still there for a lot of young kids. I think as a teacher, I get the impression from parents, that maybe the world is more dangerous than we grew up in. But I've heard at a couple times at teachers' conventions, sociologists talking and saying the world has never been as safe. And I really just believe you got to let your kids go out and do some things on your own, and let them spread their wings a bit and build a little bit of confidence. And for me, riding the subway with my sister, I mean, how old would we be? 11, 12, 10, maybe at that age. And to go together, and Toronto was fine. I've been on the subway before. We knew how to get around. And you certainly know when you are, even going to sailing school, you'd pass through certain places on the streetcar, because we take the subway down to, St. Andrews Station, and hop out there and take the streetcar west. You go on that streetcar and you're passing certain intersections and neighborhoods, and you would think to yourself, I'm not getting off here.
Right.
There's no way. Yeah. And you'd continue on, and even where we probably got off was maybe, I wouldn't say it's unsafe, but I'm sure there was, a certain element there, even there as well. But we're together, and usually you might bump into other kids that are going to sailing school too. So you travel in a pack, and yeah, it worked out just fine. And I'm really grateful that my parents never gave the impression that they were concerned, because
they
them being
you, yeah.
confident, or just not letting me see that if they were worried, helped me feel really good about doing these things on my own.
Right.
And I rode my bike around the neighborhood, and would go and visit friends that way, and it just never even thought about it. And so it really surprises me now when I hear parents saying, oh, I don't want my kids to do this, it might be dangerous, or my kids, I live close enough. They come to the school that I work at, and we bike there when the weather's nice. Mm-hmm. Well, they're now at an age where I'm like, I'm happy to let you go on your own.
Right.
But there are some parents who can't believe that I let my kids cycle to school.
Right.
And there's a bike path the whole way up,
yeah.
To their school. And I think this is great for them to be able to ride the bike, and then they don't have to wait for me for a ride at the end of the school day. If they feel like going home, they can go home. And I think that's a great feeling for them to have independence and a certain amount of autonomy in the world. And I think it's really good for their confidence to have that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really interesting. Like, you mentioned that independence. You mentioned how it's helping you build confidence, some street smarts as well, like passing through those neighborhoods, just starting to figure some of those things out on your own. And then I would imagine, not trying to date you or anything here, but you're not on a phone the whole time you're on the train. You're having to have conversations with your sister, but also probably just some strangers around, whether it's the guy helping with the tickets. Like, you're having to be present in your environment versus just being on a screen for that entire trip. Do you kind of remember, how you would pass the time on those trips? Because that seems to be such a big difference for a lot of kids these days, is when they are in the car driving to hockey or whatever it is, it's in front of a screen versus actually having to look out the window and engage with what your environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we probably just talked, and then you observe.
Right.
So those would really be the two things. Or you're bored, you're just sitting there waiting.
Learning some
You know,
patience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Maybe a book or something.
Yeah. You know,
Something.
there for all lots of times too. I won't say lots, but a number of times when at least at the end of the day, you're coming back with all the other kids that ride on the subway because you'd leave together. You may not all come at the same time, but you'd leave together. So there was always talking going on.
Right.
You'd be talking, and then eventually, as you hit the subway, people might splinter off. But I remember just conversation, and sometimes you're just sitting in silence. You're reading the advertisements in the subway cars, or you're staring out the window. But there was never a sense of you want to get somewhere fast. You just know where you're going. I guess kind of enjoy the ride, and. Sean, like you're asking me, you notice certain things. Well, I think it's good to be observant that there are certain street corners. You could just tell there was hardened people there, or people that were living on the streets, or you can see the physical signs on. Not everybody's like this, but someone who looks like they've got addiction problems.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There are people who are moving with purpose, and then there are people who are just lingering.
Right.
And you know that the people who are lingering, there's something going on there. There's a reason why they're lingering. And then at other stops, everybody's just moving.
Yeah.
So you pick up on those cues, and I see today, like, yes, we've got this technology that kids can engage in to help them, or not to help them, but that connect them to either their friends or family. But I do think for me anyway, that sort of stuff, like most things, there's a moderation. You can't use it all the time. I do think kids lack creativity in terms of, I'm bored, I don't know what to do. Even regardless if I'm a bit older than you guys, we all grew up without phones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? When you're at home and you're like, I'm bored, and your TV show didn't come on till 5.
Right.
You couldn't just go online and go, I'm going to watch now. You'd have to wait. You're like, okay, what am I going to do?
You got to do
You have to
something.
get creative.
You get creative, and you just,
Use
and
your imagination a little bit. Pretend games, especially when you're younger. Yeah. Now it's just like, no, you're just got the screen. Just
yeah.
here's your entertainment.
And it's not necessarily a sport, but one of the things I remember most in terms of that creativity was, we would just drive to the nearest ravine and try to build tree forts, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like just, again, such a different setup versus having that entertainment in your hands on the screen. You had to go make it. You had to go find a way to entertain yourself.
And I think that is empowering for kids.
Right.
You know how to take care. It's that self-regulation.
Yeah.
And I think some kids, struggle with that. I'll see it even in my classroom at times. There are certain kids that don't have patience to wait and see what's going to happen. There are some kids that are like, okay, I'm done this. What do I do now? And I've told the class over and over, when you're done, here's what you can do, 4 or 5 things.
Right.
But it's amazing, even still, after doing that time and time again with the kids in the class, there are always kids, they want to come up and ask you, what do I do? I'm done. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think to myself, you've got to stop and pause and think for yourself, what did the teacher say? What are my options? And then just move yourself
Go
forward
through that Rolodex,
way, right?
yeah.
No, it's definitely, I noticed that too with like employees and whatnot too. It's like sometimes it's like they won't be able to take the direction and like run with it. Like they need the like task.
Mm-hmm.
The self-thinking kind of
Yes.
to go away a little bit. And I
Taking
think
that
it's-
initiative for yourself, or
because everything's kind of here.
Yep.
I mean, I have one now, obviously, but as a kid, though, I think it's like almost like fries your brain a little bit. Like you don't. Yeah, back to what you said about entertaining yourself. It's like you need, like they need that instant gratification now because they always have like that dopamine spike of, like all day, and all of a sudden when it doesn't happen, they don't know what to do, and then they can't control themselves on a certain. It's almost like it is an addiction.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I've listened to, was it Simon Sinek? He's talked about that very point. Like you get those dopamine hits. So now he's not the only one that's mentioned it, but you get that dopamine hit and it keeps you going back. You look at the software developers, they may not admit it publicly, but they all are building their app so someone gets addicted to it because they're making money off of people just tapping on their app. And do I think that's a healthy thing? No. I think you can use your phone if you use it, as a tool to help you, do certain things, then that it can be effective. There's also a slippery slope to that because people can say, well, this is a tool for all these different things. And, I really only stick to the utilitarian purpose of it.
Right.
As much as I can. I'm not even going to say I'm perfect with it, but I mean, my goal is always I'm trying to, and I'm not saying I've hit it yet, but I'm trying to get like under an hour of screen time.
Right.
Right now I sit about, an hour and a half, for an hour and 45 minutes as my weekly average. But usually that's, in the morning I do a devotion. And so that takes up a big chunk of my phone time. But for the rest of the day, I try and stay off of it. And music is about the only other thing I use it for.
Now, you talk about that balance that you're trying to strike with your relationship with devices. Now, I know obviously at Vimy, where I'm working, the new provincial laws have come in. It seems like most provinces have gone down the same path of not allowing devices to be used in school. Each school is kind of taking those rules and massaging them for their own unique situation. But I have certainly observed it being an incredible challenge for the teachers and for us because it's just such a habit and they're so used to having those phones on them. What kind of things are you doing in your classroom and or at your school to try to strike that balance of, like you said, it's a tool, it's become part of life. Getting rid of it completely doesn't seem to be the answer, but at the same time, having access all day long obviously doesn't work either. So what are some of the strategies that you've been implementing at school?
Well, grade 4, I don't have to worry about phones.
Nice.
Right? So right away, I'm.
No one has a phone?
No, well, they might, but if they bring it out, I will
you
tell them
don't
to go
know,
in
okay.
their backpack. Like, I don't want to see that thing.
Yeah,
and if they do pull it out, I can take it.
Right.
And then they can get it back at the end of the day. So in some ways, it's a non-issue for me. I know throughout our school, we have a policy where those things only come out when students are on a break, and that goes all the way through to high school. And there's a bit of a learning curve at the beginning of the year for students to just get used to that idea. I mean, my 2 older girls who are there at the school, they just say at their break time, they can go check on their phone in their lockers.
Yeah.
But I've not heard any problems since our initial startup at the beginning of the beginning of the school year. I also, when I teach, I take moments to just talk about life with my students. And so I do talk about things like, be careful with phones. You're going to be growing. As you grow up, you're going to be, eventually getting one. You got to know what app developers are doing. You think that they're after your best interest. And there are some apps that actually will help you live better lives. Mm-hmm. You've also got to know everybody's trying to make money. Mm-hmm. So they want you to look at their app so that they can make some money. Yep. And they want you to become addicted. Like, do you really need to play solitaire on your phone? Or why don't you grab a deck of cards and play solitaire that way?
Right, with a friend.
Exactly. Yeah. All these sorts of things. There are other options, but I really think it's kind of taps into our, humans given the chance between, taking an easy path or doing something a little more difficult. Most times, I'm not saying every time, but most times we'll take the easy path. So if it's convenient and easy on our phone, why would I go get up out of my seat, grab a deck of cards, try and find someone to play cards with? That just takes more effort.
Right. Yeah.
And yet, the benefits from, that, I think, first being off the screen and learning, again, taking that initiative. You're mentioning, Matt, like when people work for you, they're used to that prescribed list. Well, if you're used to thinking for yourself and how you're going to occupy your time, you have that in you to get up and grab a deck of cards, or I don't know, maybe it's read a book, or maybe it's I'm going to go and learn to cook something or bake cookies. I really don't know what it is, whatever someone's interests are, rather than sitting on a screen.
Or even just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Where did that philosophy come from for you in terms of, you just said you talk about life with your students? Where did that come from? Because I've had a lot of teachers that just want to get the lesson plan over with and on with their day.
You know, I do not know exactly where that came from. I didn't initially, have a plan to become a teacher. Mm-hmm. I worked for a while, and then I decided to come back, or I thought I'd never go to university. I was so done with school. I actually, as much as I'm a teacher, I don't like being in school. I love being
Teaching.
in school as a teacher. Yeah. I absolutely love it. But I do not like being a student. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And so I did go back to school, got my teaching degree. You know, that's just playing the game of life, right? Mm-hmm. To get me to my end point. But I for whatever reason, if it's just intuitive inside of me, I think, kids need to be given information before they get to those stages of life. Maybe it's because me growing up, I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And it was a real struggle. And I often wish, man, it would have been nice if somebody told me this, or if I was given this piece of advice. And so I really believe that me being a teacher is more than just math, LA, science, social. I think my job is to show these kids something in them that maybe they haven't seen yet, or just even if I can show them that I believe in them, that maybe they start to believe in themselves. Because I think then, LA, math, science, all the subjects take care of themselves. A kid will work hard if they have someone who believes in them. And I think all of us, having done sports, would say, I remember a coach who really believed in me. Yeah. And you play differently. Yeah. You play differently for that coach. Whereas a coach who you don't feel like they have confidence in you, you play a little differently. It's a little, subtle difference. But it can change. It changes that experience for you hugely. And so for me as an educator, that's more my focus. Yeah, I have to have my lessons and, have that all ready to go. But I really believe that I'm trying to build our future leaders.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I even tell my students, I say, listen, I want you to do well. I want you to be successful because you're going to be a leader somewhere. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a leader in your family. Maybe it's a leader with your group of friends. Maybe you're a leader of an organization. I really don't know, but everybody has to lead somewhere in their life. Mm-hmm. You're going to be, if you're a parent, you're a leader. I want you to be great at whatever you're going to lead, because when I'm old, I want to know everything's in good hands. Because if they're not, I'm going to be, pretty annoyed. I tell them that. If I find out you're not doing it, if I see you, I'm going to come get you with my cane. And they all think it's funny, but it, really there is a point behind it that I think, be great. Yeah. Why not be the best, whatever you are? It does not mean fame. It means be great, which is a lot of work, but you're worth it. And you've got something of value to give to the world. Maybe, and I don't always know what that is, but I hope you find it one day. Or maybe I see something in you that I'm like, you gotta think about this part of yourself, because I think there's something there. I'll mention it to them, and see where it goes. But I really hope that they, after a year in my class, that they start to have confidence and a belief in themselves.
Right.
So two things. One is like, do you think your experience as a student kind of made you teach the way you want to now, because that's what you were missing, but also like your youth sports experiences, like with coaches, like that seemed to play a big part in how you want to coach your students now?
Yeah, for sure. I remember two coaches who were my favorite coaches growing up. One was when I was 20, and one would be when I was probably 8. And the thing that stuck out for me with both of them is they believed in me. They saw something in me that I had not realized yet in myself. And, and also doing some professional learning as a teacher, there is research that will say it doesn't matter really how you teach the kids. It matters more that they think you like them, that they think you believe in them. And when I heard that, I thought, yeah, that's kind of why I do teaching. It reinforced where I was already coming from, because when you have, whoever it is you're leading, it doesn't have to be students, whoever it is you're leading, if they think that you like them, if they think you believe in them, they will push themselves and they will do more than they got in the opposite treatment. We can all, we've had experiences with bosses or coaches or parents, and you don't work as hard for the ones that you don't think care about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't want to put out for the ones that you think don't give you a chance or don't believe in you. And, I feel fortunate that, I look at the students in my class and I think, yeah, I see the good in each of them. So for me, I can spot that. And it's not that I can see their gifts always, but I can see there's something in you. I know there's something there, mm-hmm. and it hasn't come out yet. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that. Every time I've got kids in my class, even the ones that are, they have behavioral issues or they don't want to work, or I know that is because there's usually something that's stopping them from it. It's right. Like something's happened in my life, or there's been somebody in my life that is just, brought me to this place in my personality right now. And it's not because they can't. It is more because, I've, in my home growing up, I've been made to feel like I'm not worth anything. Right. Or, my dad died and now I'm just bitter. I'm an upset kid. And sometimes kids don't know how to deal with those feelings. And so it comes out in behaviors. And, for me, I'm like, my challenge as a teacher is to help them look past that and say, I know bad things will happen. None of us can escape it. Mm-hmm. We've all got a story somewhere in our life. Mm-hmm. And it's really my job to help them see past that, and even, if I can, help them work through it.
And just one thing to add to that, Tony, and let me know if you agree with it or not, but I think one of the amazing things about young kids especially is, you mentioned them believing that you're there for them and that you believe in them. I think they have the innate ability to know if that's truthful. They can sense if you're faking it, you can't pull the wool over their eyes. They can genuinely feel if you're actually there and have their best interests in mind. And it's pretty powerful. And it's pretty amazing. And, having known you for several years, I think you have a lot of empathy, and I think you genuinely, like you've been saying, care about these kids, and they can sense it. And like you said, when you believe in them and give them that confidence, that everyone has potential, I think, it's unbelievably powerful and can make them feel, so much better about themselves in a pretty quick period of time. But I guess, A, what do you think about that? And B, how quickly do you find that maybe some of your students or kids on the ice that are a little bit further down in their confidence and in their belief for themselves, how quickly have you seen that transition be able to take place?
Authenticity, I think, is huge. If you be authentic, and genuine, kids, everybody picks up on it.
Yeah.
I think, and it's like one of those subtle things in life. You can kind of tell when even as us grown-ups, you can tell someone who's not interested in your conversation or who is, mm-hmm. who has a genuine interest in engaging with you. And it's not something you can measure. Science can't pick it up. It's like, it's something in us that we just feel it,
yeah.
And there are times maybe we don't. But I think kids will sniff that out.
Yeah.
Just like grown-ups will sniff it out. And, for me, because I look at my class, and I've told even this year's group, I'm like, I maybe don't know everything about you, but I know everybody in this class is smart. Now, our school doesn't measure everybody's smarts. We measure the academic stream of smarts. But there's so many other things out there that that don't get measured in school but count in life. Mm-hmm. And, I try and tell the kids that, you don't have to be the smartest in school to be successful in life. But what you need to do is work hard.
Right.
Like if I see you giving up, now I got a problem. You're going to catch my attention. But getting back to what you're saying or asking there, Sean, I really do think, you know, and I've heard a couple videos on this, that, you know, when you're authentic, you know, people pick up on that too, and it draws the right kind of people to you.
Right.
And it's, you know, being truthful with who you are, or being comfortable with who you are, you know, sometimes for grown-ups is a big step of growth.
Yep.
Because we might say, I want to be this, but that's not who you really are.
Right.
But there's something like pride, or there's, I get status if I'm this, and if I don't do this, then what am I? I'm not going to have status or meaning. And I think a lot of times there are kids and grown-ups that are afraid to just be the person they were made to be.
Right.
You know, for me, with my faith, I think God's made us all with a particular purpose.
Right.
And if you find your purpose, you know, and you follow that, even if it's, you know, you might at first think, I don't want to, you know, there's no way I want to be doing X. But when you actually get yourself involved in it, you'll find your confidence is there. You'll find you enjoy it more than you realize, and you find your purpose. And everybody has to do different things. We can't have everybody being famous, because then what? It's not, if everybody's famous, well, then it's not really unique to be famous.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I just think it's not about fame. It's about when you find your purpose, it's not work anymore.
Right.
You know, like me teaching, finally, you know, I was in my 30s when I finally started to teach. And all that time I thought, man, if I'd only come to this earlier, it doesn't feel like work to me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I go in there, and, you know, sure, marking and report cards, all that stuff. I'm not a big administrative guy. That's not my strength as a teacher. But when I'm there in front of the kids and just, you know, you're doing a lesson, and it's not even that, it's the time after a lesson with, maybe you've got some kids that need help with math. You know, and you get that one-on-one time, and you get to joke around with them a little bit, and you help them at the same time. You know, I'm like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is why I like doing it.
Right. I mean, that's an awesome answer, and I threw a lot at you with that question. Just curious, the transition. So you have in an elementary school, you have these kids for the whole year. You see them a lot, which is amazing, and that really plays into the ability for someone to grow and to change and to develop. Is it just the sheer number of hours that are put towards that goal? Fortunately, again, in your position, you see these kids a lot, and they're very, it's awesome that they have the opportunity to spend that much time with you. Is it kind of case by case? Like, do you find some students are able to, you know, really move the needle within, you know, a couple weeks, where others it takes kind of, you know, the better part of 10 months? I know, having talked to you in the past about this, like, you know, after the end of the school year, everyone has made significant gains, but do you find that, you know, each individual has their own sort of pace to how quickly they can grow and transition?
I'd say a lot of kids in my class are, you know, I don't have to motivate them. They come self-motivated. I'm pretty lucky that way in my school, that they come self-motivated. There are some kids, you know, who you think all year long, you're on them all year long, and you're thinking, did we do anything or accomplish anything this year? And, you know, sometimes kids struggle all year academically. I will not compromise on my message that I will give that child. So if I see certain things in them that I think you can be better at this, I'm not all of a sudden going to back down.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that that's the message they get all year. Do I necessarily see the needle move? Like, will I see a math mark get better? Maybe. You know, I think what it really matters to me more is, do they leave my class feeling like they want to come to school more than they did at the beginning of the school year?
Right.
Like, do I have a good memory of school?
Right.
Do I have a good memory of Mr. Reid and being in his class this year? Do I have a better feeling about myself and who I am? If that is what's happening for them, I feel like I've had a successful year. and it may not show up academically. There are some kids, school will be a struggle their whole way through. But if I can give them enough to say, hey, you can't give up.
Right.
Like, you better get your high school. And if you don't get your high school diploma, your chances of poverty just skyrocket. Right. And to me, I think get your high school. You need that in order to avoid poverty. I don't want you to be in poverty. And for me, if them being in my grade 4 class propels them to graduate, then that's success. Mm-hmm. But you can't always measure, success. At least that's not how I go about it. I'm not looking at marks. And yes, there are people in the education system that want to see stats. They want to see kids writing better. They want to see them better with their mathematical skills. They want to see their reading scores increase. And I don't always think that's the whole picture.
Right.
And so for me, if a kid leaves my class and they're happy they're in my class for the year, that's success.
Right.
Because those kids that have had problems at the beginning of the year, most of the time are because of something, mentally for them or in their heart, that you can't just, repair that in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. It takes time.
Yeah.
Very long-term development.
It is totally. I mean, to me, I feel like in my job, I'm really dealing with the human heart and trying to, in some cases, make change for the better with kids. And all of us know as adults that if we were to do that or, go for counseling or try and seek help for struggles that we have in our life, it doesn't change in 2 weeks. You don't go to 2 sessions of counseling and you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah.
It's constant work all the time. You might learn in counseling, 2, 3, 4 sessions. What are some of the strategies you need to put in place? But now you got to go out and do it.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah.
And then it
Maintain
becomes,
it.
and then it becomes habitual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me as a teacher, I'm with those kids and it's, the troubled ones or the ones that just are behavior. You just spend more time with them because they're always, you got problems there and you got to try and deal with the problems in your class. But over time, I hope that they, it shifts them a little bit. It shifts them to a more positive outlook on life, or it shifts them into a stronger belief in themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's, for me, that's really my goal as a teacher. And all the other stuff, the academics take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You deal with the heart and the head and everything. You don't have to worry about school.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. That's a great message because a lot of this stuff can be done through either a sports or science or theater or something, like giving yourself that extra purpose. At times, do you find now, I've kind of noticed this a little bit with golf anyways, some of the young athletes, like they want that reward, like they need like a physical reward sometimes at the end, whereas like I know when I was a kid, like the biggest thing for me was like just getting able to play, like play the baseball game or the competition round or hockey, whatever. Like that was the reward, was like the actual part of it. But I find now it's like they want like some extra like treat at the end. Like,
yeah, some kids do. I would say that seems to be more prevalent, I think, than perhaps when we were growing up. Yeah. I really didn't get rewards growing up.
Yeah.
And I, for whatever reason, just did it on my own.
You just wanted to
play, I
right?
wanted to do this. Yeah. But as a teacher and even as a parent, I'm realizing, that was just me. Like, that's my lens of the world. There are people who are extrinsically motivated.
Right.
And I don't always get it, but I better adapt my leadership style for those kids or for my own children, because if they are extrinsically motivated, okay, well then if that's what it takes for you to do something, then let's do it. I think as they mature and get older, then they probably find something outside of themselves that maybe isn't a candy or something.
It could be
like
monetary, but then we still lead to that same thing where I find that it's still task oriented.
Yeah.
You don't start thinking of it on your own because you're just looking at that carrot at the end, like that's it.
Yeah, I give rewards like, okay, we'll get more free time in class, and I have some board games in my class. Kids can play board games, And that is great because they all talk to each other.
That's a good
But
one.
I'll also give, Chromebook time, or I do use candy as a bribe because sometimes
Never fails.
Never fails. And you'd be amazed what they do for one jube. Like you can get a half-hour quiet time in your class. If you say everybody's quiet for a half hour and you get one candy, they will be quiet. And I use it primarily for things like get me in your field trip forms, or if work isn't handed in, hey, everybody who's handed in this piece of work, you get a candy. Oh, now everybody's motivated. Mm-hmm. So do I use it? Yeah. It would be nice if everybody was intrinsically motivated, and, pluses and minuses, because I do think that it's just we're different people.
Yeah. I know with my golf classes, so some people that run the same program, they'll give out like rewards, like it'd be like candy or whatever at the end of the season, and I'm just like, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong to me in a certain way. I also don't like giving kids candy because I also like the sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
it's
no
fair.
joke.
It's fair point.
Even
Yeah.
for Halloween, like I started giving like Gatorades instead. I just didn't want to give it like chocolate
Bananas.
or chips or like whatever. It's like something else. Like, not that like Gatorade's the best thing ever because there's all the sugar in it still.
Yeah.
But if you're running around all night, then yeah, maybe.
You feel better.
Yeah, I
giving
feel
out
better.
Gatorade. That's right. There we go.
I give a bottle of water or something, but that'd be crazy. I don't want my house get egged or anything. So, yeah.
Do you think, Anthony, it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg, though, like same as the phone? Like, part of the reason that, again, people are unique genetically, innately, but at the same time, your environment influences the way you are to a big extent too.
Yeah.
So if kids are from day one getting the candy, getting those, extrinsic rewards, and that becomes the habit, versus like the way you grew up, that wasn't part of it. You had to find another way to be motivated, whether that was just being excited about skating faster, and being clocked by your dad and going around quicker and having a better time, or winning more games in some of the team sports. Do you find that, again, it's very similar to the phones in the sense that if it's already so deeply rooted, there's only so much you can do to change how they come to you. But do you think that if, that element was taken out of the picture earlier, you would see a different landscape in your classroom?
Yeah, I think right now everybody, not everybody, I should be careful here. There are some parents who, like, every kid should get a participation badge. I'm like, really? No.
Right.
No, you shouldn't. They should be here because they want to be here. I do not prescribe to that. And I know it's more prevalent. Like, we want to make everybody feel like they're having a good time. Well, no. They have to find it within themselves, and sometimes kids not getting the participation badge is okay. Mm-hmm. Kids not getting a reward, it's okay. Because why are they here? I sure hope they're not doing it for the badge at the end, or, the candy at the end of the training, the golf training. To me, I'm like, okay, now they're here for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I do have a problem with that. And I think it's, kids have to own the things that they enjoy. And if you as a parent, or as, even me as a teacher, this is where I'm like, okay, it's a fine line, but if I can give them a little reward along the journey, then that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't want the journey to be rewarded at the end for, well, you get the badge, or even a badge isn't that bad, but they get something for completing it. Mm-hmm. I really do think that you have to own it. It's like I say to the kids, you got to own your education. I'm not a screen here with notifications popping up saying, please pay attention now, important math concept being taught. I can't do that. You got to own it.
Right.
And when you own that, then it, now it becomes yours.
Right.
And now you're invested.
Right. That's a good
And point. I think sometimes we're leaning that way. It's like some parents, not all, because there are some parents out there who, will say they do it because they want to do it. I take them there. I make them do it because I think this is good for them. And at some point they'll make up their mind whether they want to continue on. But I think really always reward system. We're not animals. We're not a dog trying to be trained. We're free thinking creatures that I think have to decide for ourselves what we're going to be involved with. And sure, along the way, your team had a great game and you won. Okay, the coach gives you some kind of reward. Okay, we'll practice off next time, or we've got a bunch of Gatorades that we're going to share with everybody. Right? But and that's okay. Those things I think are fine. But it really has to be that it's something you want to do in the end. And when it's yours and you own it, man, that's a totally different experience than when you are, I do it because I'm going to get X amount of dollars. I'm going to get a PlayStation 5. Or to me, then maybe you're in the wrong thing.
Right. You're not enjoying the journey.
Yeah, because you see like celebrities or whatever, like they have everything in the world like monetarily and they're still not happy.
Right.
But back to the other point here is I think learning to lose, like you don't want to accept it, but you have to learn how to accept it in a certain way, because eventually certain things in life later, you're not always going to get everything you want. So sometimes it actually is good to learn how to lose, which is something you're going to learn when you're playing sports all the time. I mean, there's certain people, like I know there's certain, college football players that will never lose for whatever it is, like 8 years or something. But in general, like in hockey, you're going to lose for sure at some point in the season, and you have to learn how to deal with that adversity and just keep going, right? So
setbacks are good.
Yeah.
Failure is good.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't embrace that enough.
Right.
We don't learn we learn little from success. We learn more from failure.
Yep.
Because I think it it just makes an imprint on you in a different way that success doesn't.
Right.
Success gives you confidence. I really think failure is a great teacher. And when you are, I'll look at even elite athletes, people that do really well at certain things, guaranteed they had to fail many times before they could do it at the high speed or high level that they're at.
Right.
And I think as an outside onlooker, we don't appreciate that.
Right.
We don't see all the mistakes. We just see the success, and it's conditioning us to think, well, we just should have success, when really we need failure. Michael Jordan has been quoted saying how many times he had to fail before he could win and succeed, and even then he still failed. Roger Federer, I think he made a great speech at a convocation speech where he talks about, I really have only won 54% of the points that are out there.
Right.
But it's more about what I do after a setback.
Right. Yeah.
And how he resets, and he's like, great, I have another chance to win. And he doesn't even worry about the score or what's happening. He's constantly moving forward. And I really think that we don't embrace failure enough. I won't say we need to celebrate it, but I think we need to have a greater appreciation for it and a comfort with it. That I don't think culturally we have a comfort with it.
Right. Not trying to avoid it. No.
Yeah. Not trying to avoid it. I mean, that's how people become strong and persevere, is being okay with failure.
Yeah.
Use it as like a positive, and we don't want to accept failure to a certain degree, but we have to make something positive out of it.
How are we going to learn from it?
Yeah. Right. Not just okay, I'm just going to lose, whatever. Not like that, but it's you have to use it for something. Make it a tool.
Acknowledge it. Don't avoid it.
Yeah.
Like you said, participation banner or whatever it is, then you're kind of hiding and masking some of those losses and some of that adversity. So
grit, to me, perseverance, determination, those are some key ingredients for life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Not was I an A student.
Right.
Not was I the most dominant player in high school football. Those things are not going to carry you through life. The things that are, okay, life was, I've always had to work for things. I've never given up. Those things carry you through all facets of life. And, I try and work on that as a teacher, and I try and work on it in my own life. I try and work on it as a dad. Don't give up. You got to keep pushing through things.
Right.
When I tell my kids, and I've got, my kids are good. They're, they still are, growing and learning to handle things. But I really like what I see in my own children. My oldest is, this year at school, I'm so proud of her. She is pushing herself to, advocate for herself, to do things that are out of her comfort zone, and to even when she has some things that are setbacks, to make the most of it. My middle daughter, loves her soccer, she loves sports, and even when she loses a game, like, she has an ability to find something good out of that. Like, I still had fun, Dad. I enjoyed it.
Right.
And with my youngest, I can see him starting to get a little more grit. I can see him. He's just, he'll do some tough things.
Yeah.
And he likes it when you do it with him, but he's learning how to do hard things. And I try and tell my kids, just learn to do hard things. You learn to be comfortable with it.
Right.
Because when you do whatever it is, whether it's school, whether it's sports, maybe it's with friendships, when you get older, you have a family, the challenges that come with that. If you've got grit and you've got perseverance and you're not going to give up, wow, you'd be a powerful person.
Right. Yeah.
We're not talking about being famous. We're talking about being a powerful person in the world that you exist in, wherever your place is.
Yep.
I think, not to put words in your mouth, but it's like you need some sort of outside thing not outside, but something to dedicate yourself to. That's more than just, you need some sort of goal.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Whatever your interest is, your passion.
Yeah.
Right? Golf for you.
Yeah.
Right? That's your thing, and it really drives you. And, but I don't know, when I think of, I teach grade 4, how many kids in grade 4 think, oh yeah, that's my thing, golf.
Yeah, very little.
But you found it, right? And
I
that's
probably didn't find it till later, actually. Probably wasn't until, probably grade 8 or grade 9. So it took a while.
That's
back
not
then
too
it was probably
late.
hockey.
That's still not
that's
too
still
late.
pretty early.
Yeah.
In general, but yeah.
And once you find it, like, look at how you've dedicated yourself to it. And now it's a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And I think, when you can find those areas of passion that you have, and maybe it's not even passion, there is a certain amount of passion, but just something that you're really good at, and you can just thrive. You can use that for something greater than yourself. Like, I look at what you're doing, I know what Sean's doing, and sure, hockey, golf, but it's not just you anymore. You're now giving that to other people. Right. You're trying to develop young athletes. You're trying to help the next generation come up, do something with that skill set that you've cultivated in yourself. Now you're offering it to the world or to your community. And to me, that is probably the greater gift you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Is what you can now give back.
Yeah. Paying it forward.
It's not even much about like the score for me. It's more like the other skills, which goes back to stuff that you're teaching now. It's about the dedication, like how you handle yourself. Those are the things I usually care about more than the score is kind of irrelevant. Like, not irrelevant, but it's a byproduct, like very far down the list, I find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, when you're coaching a kid in golf, if he throws the golf, he or she throws a golf club. That's like, the problem.
Yeah.
And you got to say, hey, let's talk about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are concerned with the person they're becoming and their golf game, but you want to see someone who is resilient and who can handle a setback.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's going to be, for much later.
Right? Yeah.
It might not even be golf related, actually. I mean, it could be, obviously, because that's the field I'm in, but it's more so for, what happens if, say, you're trying to go for like a promotion or something. You want to get into a certain school and you get denied.
Yeah.
Are you just going to pack up and, give up, or are you going to try to take this other path?
Sometimes there is, like, you've got to keep at it many times. There's a young guy I know, and he is trying to get in to be a teacher. He's already with the school system, but there are some walls he's coming up against. Mm-hmm. And I actually think he's a great teacher. I truly do. And he, a number of times is thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. I'm like, you can't, just because someone said no here and somebody's saying no here. Like, you got to keep pushing. And I know why there are certain no's coming at him. And I'm thinking, you can't give up. Like, you are where you're supposed to be.
Right.
And eventually something's going to happen if you just if you stick with it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He is frustrated, absolutely, with what's going on. with his situation, but he always manages to find, this guy has now got work, full-time work between now and the end of the school year. And I'm like, great. So you got something.
Yeah.
Now you're going to reset, see what happens. And in the world of teaching, it's in Edmonton anyway, you just need one principal.
Yeah.
Because the principals are the ones that will talk to, the board office and can move things forward for you. And I think you don't need to worry about, 10 principals who are not going to bat for you. You just got to find the one who will.
Right. Yeah.
And so just keep at it. Don't, I try and encourage them, say, you got to keep doing it. Don't give up. Don't give up. And to me, that is the greater, learning lesson. And it's hard.
Right.
But that's the greater lesson. And once he gets through to the other side, he is going to think, man, that was totally worth it.
Right. So Tony, sorry, Taylor.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned, the hardworking, staying, persevering, grit, you instill that on your kids. Did that come from your parents and you're passing it down, or where did, your ideology come from?
Yeah. I think in my family growing up, we didn't really talk about stuff like that, but I had parents who modeled it. My mom is both my parents, my mom and my dad, are pretty determined in different ways. So, I saw my dad, he was running his own companies. I mean, they weren't big operations. He worked independently on his own and sometimes had one or two people working for him. But he had to be disciplined and get up, go to work every day. And I think I could never be an entrepreneur like him. I do not, if someone said, oh, just come to work, I do need structure around me. But I looked at him, and there's a guy who every day got up, went to work, and he's disciplined. I mean, he would get up. He would get up at 5 a.m. and go exercise, come home, shower, off you go to work. And he just did it. My mom, same thing. Like, I would watch her. My household growing up was a traditional home. My mom stayed at home, and my dad went to work. And my mom, without fail, she didn't shy away from doing hard things as a parent. Whether it was, both my parents would, if you're misbehaving, you hear about it. But the things that were required of my mom at home, sure, there's days we come home from school. I'm sure she was, we would exhaust her, but she's still making meals. Homemade meals were the way it was in my house, and she made good ones. Well, that's hard work.
Yeah.
When, and especially when we were all little and at home. She had three kids, 5 and under. So at one point we would have all been out of school, and just doing that all day, plus then doing meals. Then my dad's like, we're going camping this weekend. We're going to go do this. She would do all of that. And I'm sure it was hard. Like, I know what it's like, because I've got 3 kids that are all like within 4 years of each other. And I remember when they're little, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just saw my parents doing that, and that's what was normal. So that's, I think, where it comes from. Like, now I can maybe label it. Okay, that's perseverance. My parents didn't give up. My dad was consistent about, you're doing sports we're doing this. He never wavered on that. My mom was the same way, like, in terms of expectations on how we were to be as human beings. That never wavered. But you have to have perseverance to stick to your message for your children and not change. And, that I do believe that takes a certain amount of fortitude and strength to not deviate, because kids can get upset. They can get mad at you. And you've got to, look past that and say, no, I know this is good for you.
Right.
What I'm doing here. And so them modeling it, to me, is where I think I've caught it. Right. And now I can articulate it and label it or name it in a way that my mom wouldn't say when we were young. She wouldn't say, oh, well, I'm teaching you grit. She wouldn't say that, Yeah.
Leading by example, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so Matt asked you about coaches when you were younger that had an influence on you. Taylor just asked you about your parents. And then especially now, being a teacher, were there any teachers that really stood out to you throughout the years that modeled some of these things that you're now teaching your own students?
I wouldn't say I have a teacher that stands out for me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like there are some great teachers I had growing up, but I don't know if it just had to happen in the realm of sports.
Yeah.
But I know my two, like Dean Ross and Mr. McKee, those two coaches just stand out in my mind. Like Mr. McKee he's passed away because he was like a dad, and but I've lost touch with Dean Ross. But I often think if I ever see him again, there's a certain gratitude, and I want to thank him for what he did for me, because it's those. It's like I've said, when you're leaving your kids leave your grade 4 class at the end of the year, there's a feeling that you have, right? And I remember Dean Ross was no easy coach. Like, he's probably my toughest coach. And very demanding.
What sport was he?
That was
coaching
rugby.
in? Rugby, okay.
Right. So that was just before I had my neck injury.
Right.
And he would, man, I just remember thinking, what the heck does it take to make this guy happy?
Yeah.
Like, and I was, not that I'm there to please my coach, but you want to play and you're trying your best to develop your skills, work hard, all this stuff. And he's a New Zealand guy, and he would tell me, right, I'm not going to tell you I've had a good game until you've had a good game. I'm thinking, man, I am busting my backside out there. Like, I'm trying. I'm giving you everything I got. And of course, then I'm like, fine. I'm going to really get, I'm going to show you. And I kept thinking, maybe he's not happy with how I played this past Saturday. Maybe I won't play next weekend. We'd have practices Thursday or Tuesday, Thursday, and then you'd find out if you're playing or not. And this would go on for a couple weeks with Dean. He's like, I was on the senior team for the rugby club in Ontario. And, at first I thought, man, I'm not going to play. He's not. Like, he's telling me I can do better. I go to practice, and on Thursday I'd find out, okay, yeah, well, you're going to play. And, after the third time he did this, I thought, okay, I know what you're doing. It's working. Like, it still motivated me. But I think after that third week, I realized if he didn't believe in me, he wouldn't let me play.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's trying to get something out of me that he sees in me that I maybe don't see yet. And all of a sudden, I started to play with I was a little more relaxed. When as I talked earlier about coaches believing in you, I just was a little more relaxed. I still played hard, but I was relaxed because there wasn't, I wasn't always constantly worrying about, will I play or not? I'm like, even if I don't, I think I know he believes in me, right? And I totally loved playing for him. Like, he was my kind of coach. He'd straight shooter. He'd tell you what you got to do, where you're screwing up, where he expects you to be playing better. And I really liked it. Very clear what I needed to be working on, and high expectations. Yeah. And I think from that experience, that's what I take to the classroom. Mm-hmm. I have high expectations for my students. I have high expectations for my own children, because they are capable, all of them, I believe, to do great things.
I think the key there is he was telling you what you needed to do better, but at the same time, also telling you that he believed you could get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that a lot of coaches miss, is they'll give you maybe some feedback about, certain skills or attitudes or whatever adjustments they would like to see for you to be a better person and or player, but they deliver it in a way that they feel like you're not actually going to get there. You have to give the person the confidence that they can make those steps.
You have to let those, people go through the growing pains.
Yeah.
You will not feel like a coach believes in you, or a boss, a teacher, or anybody for that matter, even a significant other, unless they let you go through the growing pains of getting there and sticking with you through it. Right. And I think that's an important piece with all of that, is that you can say you believe in, but you got to make sure you're going to walk with them through that growth.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, did Coach Ross, right?
Yep.
Ross, did you see him using different tactics with different players? Because I think about that type of tactic, and obviously for some players that maybe didn't have the drive and the confidence and belief in themselves to a certain level at that point, like you were motivated by it, but other players from that particular approach I could see caving a little bit. Was he a guy that was also trying to read his players and try to switch up his methods for individuals a little bit?
Well, from what I could see, he's probably the same with everybody.
Yeah.
Now, I was the youngest guy on the team. I was 20. And, this is my first chance to play at the highest level and for club rugby. And so you're just like, okay, I'll do what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm playing with other guys who are, I think the next oldest might have been 26. And then guys into their later 20s and 30s. Now, we all know as you get older as men, you kind of get your opinions and you feel strongly about certain things. And I saw his approach, butt heads with certain players. Maybe that was good for him as a coach. Mm-hmm. Maybe he needed to learn, okay, I got to handle. I remember one guy on our team, his name's Woodsy, and he'd push back. Now, he's probably probably our best player. And he would, there'd be our coach barking something from the sideline, and he'd, every now and again, if he didn't agree, he'd say something back to him. So there was, which is good. Probably Dean Ross needed some strong personalities to butt up against too, because Dean he's a strong personality guy too. So, I don't know all the other things he did. I mean, it's what I'm seeing at practice, what I see at games. But, he was also really good at when the game's over and we're having a beer. We're having a beer. We're having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like he'd be right up there with all the players having a good time. And so he had an ability, maybe it's compartmentalized. Hey, we're now done the game. We're out of the change room. I've been able to say what I need to say. We're on to the social part. Let's have a good time.
Yeah. Right. Set some boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if there were private conversations made with certain players. If he did that, I didn't, maybe I didn't pay attention or didn't notice. But I do know there was times where there's a little bit of tension. That's okay. Yeah. Tension is good. Sometimes we need to have the clashing in order to find a good direction to move forward in.
Mm-hmm. And how'd the team do it as a whole? Like, were you guys a competitive team? Like on an individual level, it sounds like he was a great coach. Was there also some really good things that he did on the team level?
I thought okay, so I did not see it through to the end of the season because I got injured. But at the time when we were playing, I believe we'd be one of the top teams, pretty competitive.
Yeah.
We played, like the team at that time in Ontario was the Ottawa Irish. We were the Toronto Irish. And the Ottawa Irish had a guy on their team. His name was Al Sharon, and he is probably one of the greatest Canadian rugby players of all time. He's a beast. Yeah. And really what it is, he just has a motor that doesn't quit, And so that was the team that we were, you're always gunning for. Now, that was the game I got hurt in. But I do recall we had a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if we had some losses, but if I recall correctly, we had a good team. Like, I liked the guys I played with. A lot of good players. And, I think after that, I remember the club went on to do well. I don't know if they necessarily won Ontario championships, but I remember they had some really good teams after that. But it's just like anything, it's hard to sustain that.
For
and
sure.
Successful clubs can do that. Like I'll say the New Zealand All Blacks, how they have been managed to be one of the top teams in the world with a population of 4 million for over 100 years boggles my mind. Yeah. Like they have created such a great culture there.
Yeah. And
you would think, okay, how is it that they can beat, England, who has, 84 million against 4 million?
Yeah.
How, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's impressive.
And yet they're always there. So, I don't know. It's like the culture is big. Culture's big.
Absolutely.
Did your dad get you into rugby?
Yeah, so when I was little, I guess going back to answering the very first question, my experience with sports, I remember before even skating, going to my dad's rugby games, sitting on the sidelines and watching him play. And he would take us up. I think my mom didn't go. And he would just bring me and my sister up. And there's always people, girlfriends, other wives that are there. You end up hanging out with them.
Yep.
And so, I remember going to those. And then afterwards, my dad would, they'd have a beer in the clubhouse. And this was an enormous clubhouse just north of Toronto. And now you're as a kid, you're basically like seeing everybody's thighs. So you're walking around, you lose your dad. And you would, some big man would say, "Hey, are you looking for somebody?" "Yeah, I'm looking for my dad." Pick you up, put you on their shoulders, and he would literally like help you scan the room. And I go, "There he is. You can see him over there." "Okay, down you go, off to your dad." And that's how I would spend some of my summer days or Saturday days with my father, was up at the rugby pitch. And little kids, we'd go around and we'd collect the beer bottles and hoping to make a little bit of money with the bartender there at the clubhouse. But you'd find purpose, and the kids we'd all play with each other. And I knew some of the other players' kids, and that would be one of my early experiences with sport before I participated. But I loved it. It was fun.
Do you remember when you started feeling like you would want to get out and play? At what age?
Probably, I don't know, maybe I know I started to play when I was 13. I probably before that would have liked to have played, but I just didn't have opportunity. And then when I had opportunity, I thought, I'm going to do this.
Right.
Like when I went to boarding school, grades 7 and 8, they had no rugby team for that age group. So I did track and field. I was not the greatest track and field athlete, but it was, it was great. Go do something at least.
You did it, yeah.
And then in grade 9, I was able to join the school rugby team, and I thought, I'm going to do that. Because I, at this point, had been playing football, play hockey. Contact sports was my thing, and I just thought, well, let's do this. So.
It's pretty incredible, especially in today's age, to start a sport at 13 is exceedingly rare. Not only to start at 13, but to then go on and play at some of the highest levels by the time you're 20. That's pretty amazing. So did you find that those years of watching your dad play helped you feel more comfortable when you got into rugby at a later age?
Well, yeah, I knew you had to pass the ball backwards.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that they're like, what? Like, what the heck? And so I knew the concept of the game. There were certain things that, when you go out and do your first practice, I knew I'd throw the ball backwards. And to advance, you're trying to run the ball forward, advance the play that way, then pass back, always trying to move the ball forward. So there were some basics that I had in place. And yeah, there's some other guys that didn't quite grasp that concept. So maybe that gave me an early start on them. But once you've done a season now, and even then it's, maybe a month into it, everybody understands. We get it.
Right.
And so I was familiar with it enough that it wasn't uncomfortable for me to get started doing it. But there's still a lot to learn, because watching it is one thing, doing it is something else, right? We could say grow up in a house and we watch our mom, I could say I watched my mom make meals. But to go and make one myself is a totally different experience.
Right.
I can watch my dad play rugby, but to go play it is a different experience.
Right.
There's certain things that I have to figure out on my own, like how do you do this, and what's little subtleties or nuances in the game that you're always learning as you play it longer. But
did you ever talk tactically with your dad during those years before you started playing? Like after his games, ever saying, "Hey, why did you do that?" And then he kind of started giving you some of his knowledge of all of his years with the sport?
No,
just watching.
Now, you know what? No, it comes back to, I will say, growing up with my dad, you didn't talk about stuff a lot.
Right.
You just went and did things, and he was just, I think for my dad, he just wanted you there, but he wasn't going to unpack it for you.
Right.
My mom, I could have a little more conversations with, and she would maybe help you through some of the things you're thinking about. But a lot of it was you're figuring it out as you go.
Right.
You got to figure it out for yourself. Hopefully you've got a coach or you've got a teacher that can fill in some of the gaps. Even your teammates sometimes help you with that. But yeah, there weren't a lot of conversations.
I think it's important having an outlet sometimes to discuss your thoughts it could be helpful. Like Sean, you mentioned with you and your like even your brother now, you still talk to him quite a bit about like recapping the game. I think that's that's very helpful.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a parent, obviously in this case too. It could be anyone, like a coach or a teammate or someone. Like reflection is always good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the unique thing about rugby is that you have that clubhouse after, right? Like a lot of other sports, you know, you maybe go after a hockey game with your teammates, but correct me if I'm wrong, for rugby, it's not just your teammates, it's the other team as well. So you're having a lot of that time to unpack things, you know, like you said, over a couple beers, things start to flow and you're having those conversations. And not only is it maybe, you know, some tactics with your own teammates about next game. I'm sure you're trying to have a good time and not talk too much shop, but inevitably you are going to be talking some rugby up there. I'm assuming.
Yeah. You know what I will say? I think rugby is great for this is you learn, and I had to learn this as a young athlete because I liked it when I hated my opposition. Like that helped me. I had to not like them.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the game, you've got to go up and talk to them.
Right.
And you're having to learn how to navigate that. Like how, you know, like I played like I wanted to tear your head off.
Right.
Not that I was going to do it, but that, you know, like I want to just demolish you. And then afterwards, you've got to like switch gears. And for me, that was a real, you know, like I had to figure that out. There was growth there because I remember one game in particular, we were playing this team and I don't even know if we won or lost, but the guy so I was a hooker, which is up in the scrum, number 2, and the other, my opposing number. So you get your number based on your position. Mm. So the other hooker, number 2, I get into the clubhouse. I think we were playing at their club's facilities or fields. So you go into the clubhouse afterwards. Right away, he finds me and he's like, here's a beer for you. And I thought, man, if we can, I gotta be nice.
You gotta be so nice.
Like I gotta talk now. You know what? Like I was, not that he would notice, but it really struck me. What that guy did is like he's teaching me like, okay, we're parking it. We're done. We're talking, and I don't even remember what we talked about, but I remember him doing that and how it really taught me a lot. That you know, we're really, you know, you hear hockey players say this, but there's a certain brotherhood there. Mm-hmm. You know, we're all in this together. Yeah, we play hard, and I think I had a lot of maturing to do in terms of my outlook on sport. That. You know, now I've read some books on high performance, and you know, this one author I've read, Jim Murphy, he's like, you really actually need to appreciate your opposition. And I did not want to appreciate my opposition, but his message, if I'm getting it right, is appreciate your opposition because they are what allows you to bring out the best in yourself.
Right.
And makes you better.
Yeah. If you look at them really negatively, like I want to just demolish them, you're not going to reach the highest level of performance you can get out of yourself.
It's like appreciating your students.
Yeah, like I need you in order to do well.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, here I am many years later, and I thought I wish I'd known that when I was younger, because it would help me look at my opposition in a different way.
Right.
You know, like I probably would have played with more joy rather than just being angry. Like you can still be aggressive and play with joy as opposed to being angry and play.
Right.
And I think I would have liked to have, you know, internalized that and put it in my mindset at an earlier age to realize, man, I need these guys. Like I can enjoy playing with you. I can enjoy the contact. I can enjoy your skill and how, you know, I missed a tackle here because now it'll make me better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think I needed to learn that at a young age, and I wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
It's
very cool that rugby sort of promotes that though, right? Because it's just a lot of other sports you don't even have that situation, like you said, where you're going up there and the guy on the other team's buying you a beer and you have to park it and you have to move on. Most other sports, you play your game, you leave the field, maybe talk to some of your own teammates a little bit, but like there isn't really any interaction with the opposition. They're jumping on the bus, they're getting out of there. Mm-hmm. Like it's very unique in terms of any other sports I've played.
Yeah, that like post-game stuff. I'm sure there are guys that, you know, struggled with that. Maybe, you know, I probably did for a little bit the time I was playing. But I think, you know, it's not all that. It might be a little, you know, hockey's not all that different. I'll say this. When you go to the off season of hockey,
Right.
and players from different teams train together, you kind of get it there. You may not get it in the season because, when you're playing junior, you're on the bus and going home. But I think there is a certain amount of it still there because you're like, hey, I'm a junior player, you're a junior player. Like we're kind of in the same thing, doing the same thing here. That I think there's a certain community that's there.
Right.
And might just show up in a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you see it in football after games. Guys
Yep.
are, everyone seems to know each other, and then the big prayer circles, and it's
Right.
Yeah.
it's an equal amount of people from each team. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting how rugby, you think, oh, that could teach us something, and then in other sports you do see some of that. But it is amazing from some of these physical, violent contact sports, you get taught that it's at the end of the day it's just a game.
Yeah, I think sports gives us something to get passionate about that means absolutely nothing. Like really, it's not necessarily the sport itself that is important to us. It might be the friendships you get out of it.
Right.
Like people, now that my mom's older and my dad's passed away, and death is a more common theme. Not hugely common in my life, but it's more it's out there. It shifts how you look at things, and I don't think athletes are saying, hey, I want my football helmet beside me when I die,
Right,
or
right.
can you get my hockey skates for me? At the end, we're all wanting to be around the people that matter to us, and I think. Sports, sure, it's great. You can get passionate about it, and it allows you to focus and really develop some good character traits. I mean, I will argue there's some people who are a little obsessive compulsive, but, at least it's put in a positive direction. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think it allows us to get passionate about something that really means nothing. It's the people in our lives that will matter more.
Right.
And sports gives us an environment where we meet people. But it could have been something else though. Maybe it's, when you're a kid, you're building forts. Like,
Right,
yeah, we're the fort club and we make forts. And like, it's
a
the
team, though.
people.
Yeah.
That's a team.
It's-
And that's one thing you miss a little bit in golf, especially in Canada. But yeah, it's important for the sports in general. Like learn how to work as a unit. You have a much bigger goal in mind than just your own personal goals. There's a coach, which typically a lot of people will have a boss in life at some point, right? Like, how do you take direction? Like, there's so many keys you can take away from team events, whether it's sport or theater or anything else.
Yeah.
But I was saying golf though, you learn to deal with pressure in a way that maybe some team athletes don't. I'm not saying not all of them, but
You're on your own.
You're on your own. Like maybe there's some benefit that you are learning to just deal with the pressure of the moment on you.
Yeah.
And that's probably the same with other team sports. Like I'm sure a quarterback feels the same way. I got to make the throw. I got to make the touchdown pass here. But I think a golfer even more so, because that to me is like, every shot is you.
Yeah.
Everything, it's the same as like a runner or a gymnast or whatever. Like it's all based on you. You have no one to rely on.
To me, there's something you're getting out of that to just kind of learn how to deal with that pressure, or being in that situation of it's me, or like if I don't do it, nobody else will.
It's like with cross country. Like, it's nice that you had both. Like you were able to be in a team environment at one point, but then at a certain point you're on your own. So it's nice to have this mix where you really learn how to operate. I find like you learn a ton of different skills when you're in both different environments.
The other cool
You would have been on a golf team, right? So when
Eventually,
you're at university, you're on a golf
That
team.
wasn't until I was 19 or 18 or 19 or whatever
Yeah.
it was. In the golf realm, it just took a while to get there. But
Right.
like baseball and hockey, I already understood how to be on a team. Whereas some people, if you only played golf, you would have never really had that team environment. And then it's almost a bit of an adjustment, because now it's like, I know there was times when we were warming up at a college tournament, like we have one range stall. We have 5 guys to tee off. Everyone's teeing off within 10 minutes of each other. You somehow have to like circle through and make sure everyone gets, a little bit of time. You can't just normally, like everyone has their own individual routine, but all of a sudden now when you got to share a space,
Right.
you have to give up a little bit in your normal routine and
Right.
adjust.
Have to compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing with teams. Yeah, you got to learn how to compromise. It's not always about you.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I always remember, when I was playing both, the cool thing about golf was that, if you had success, it wasn't necessarily hidden within the team. So, you could really, reap the rewards of that. You didn't have the subjective layer of a coach having to also, see it and believe you contribute it when there's other players on the ice. And I mean, again, in hockey, you can make individual plays, but it is a team sport and the other players are helping, whether you score a goal, get an assist, break up a 2-on-1, whatever it is. But then the flip side is if things go wrong, like you can't hide from that either, right? So it's all on you, like you guys were saying, and you can't. Which again, it's very healthy though. You can't go and try to pawn it off on somebody else and say, "Oh, my D partner played terrible today. That's why we struggled and we were -3." You have to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
There's no other option.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredibly great within the contrast of a team sport as well.
Yep.
So, Tony, maybe just jump into hockey a
Sure.
little bit here. So, Mr. Coach McKee, was he a hockey coach? He wasn't a rugby coach, so I'm
No,
assuming.
he was like hockey coach,
Yeah.
house league hockey coach,
Yeah.
and I had just played house league growing up, so you play on Saturday. And then that year I was with Mr. McKee. It was actually the year I went to just after I went to my first hockey camp. And, I go to hockey camp. I'd never been a great hockey player at this point at all. There was nothing remarkable about me as a hockey player in any way. And, my dad said, well, I'll just send you off to hockey camp. Off I go to hockey camp. I come back, and Mr. McKee, there I am playing for him. And I remember I wasn't there for the conversation, but my dad told me about it. Mr. McKee went and talked to my dad, and he's like, hey, are you going to have your son try out for the selects team? Like, you need to do that. And for me, I was like, that's not even in my reality. I'm like, I'm getting schooled by this, the select players for our league. And, my dad told me this, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't even remember my response, but I remember I went to try out. So obviously I said, sure, let's try this. But, I went and I was the last guy, probably last guy picked, second last guy picked for the team. And, that propelled my hockey career in a totally different direction. And I think if Mr. McKee had not spoken to my dad, what would have happened? And really, that summer, I think my hockey camp, all of a sudden my skating, I don't know where it came from, but I got it. And the thing is, I could skate. I wasn't the best stick handler, but I could skate. And I could skate in selects. I could skate faster than everybody. Couldn't handle the puck better than everybody, but I could skate faster. Mm-hmm. So I had, as a hockey player, I started to figure out what's my strength. Well, my strength is skating, back checking, forechecking. And Mr. McKee is the one that just had to put the right word in my dad's ear to get me to go to selects. And then I started to play selects. And I played that for a couple years at North Toronto. And then when I went to boarding school, I played hockey there. And even there, I was fast.
Do you think your speed on the ice was influenced by the fact that we're obviously learning how active you were as a young kid, playing a whole bunch of different sports? Do you think just your overall athleticism and activity levels helped you with being a powerful skater once you got the hang of like the specifics of being on the ice?
I don't know really where it came from.
Yeah.
I'm used to, as an athlete or even just doing things, I would I don't mind pushing myself to be physically uncomfortable.
Right.
You're aching, you just want to say stop. I remember that when I was younger. I was totally okay with that. So maybe my drive to push myself was greater in that capacity. Like I saw guys that maybe couldn't quite give it everything when they were skating, and I didn't always understand, but I knew I had an extra gear, or I could push through it. I don't know, maybe there were guys that were okay with being uncomfortable too, but I could skate.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know why.
It's all the laps
But
your
I-
dad was timing.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like, do you think
Yeah.
dad pushed you, or is there something else another activity where like someone just kept pushing you a little bit beyond to kind of see how far you could go?
I think it just happened, and then I thought, man, I can skate. Like, now I've got something,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I can chase down this defenseman and get the puck from them, or I can, on the back check, that guy doesn't think that I'm coming right behind him, and I'll take that puck. Like, there was a certain amount of joy and pride I took in knowing that I could do that.
Right.
I couldn't score goals like other guys could, but if I could get the puck to the guys that could score, like, I loved doing that.
Right.
That was my thing. And not everybody likes to do that. Not everybody likes to back check. I don't know too many guys that do like to back check. I loved it. I was like, I can do that. I can catch that guy. He doesn't even know I'm coming, and I could catch him. And, this is in a day and age before we have the type of training that we do now where, you can train to be a better skater. Well, that wasn't happening when I was growing up. I just think I was blessed with just I was able to skate fast.
Whoa.
And I was fit.
Right.
And that really is what helped me. And I just loved it. I loved it. I loved chasing guys down.
Right.
And later on when I was older in my adult years, still the training hadn't quite, this was in like the late 80s, early 90s. Training was just starting. People were starting to get dialed into like, okay, off-season training to become a stronger skater, stick handler, whatever it is. I was playing, was in Vancouver at the time. I happened to luck out, play in a summer skate with some university and pro guys. And there was one pro guy there, and he played in Europe. And he was tall, 6'5", great hands, really great hands. And I just, I could only dream of scoring like he could, stick handling like he could. But it would basically be like pickup hockey, just so guys were keeping up with their game and not losing anything over the summer. And, here I am playing, and I'm thinking, I am a rec men's hockey league, and I'm out here with these guys. Like, what the heck am I doing? But same thing, I could skate. Like, there were guys in the NHL out there, I could skate faster than them. Yeah. There's no way I could stick handle and think or do any of those other things. But this one guy, his name's Greg Mueller, I remember at one point he said to me, yeah, I like playing with you. And I'd be thinking to myself, why? Like, what am I? He's like, basically, here's what I do. I kind of just follow you around the ice because I know when you're chasing, the D-man with the puck, all I have to do is get there at the right time. I get the puck. Easy.
Yeah.
Like, my life's easy.
Yeah.
And he'd say, other times, you're on the back check. If I'm just watching at the right time, you get the puck, and I'm there. Like, now I get the puck. I was like the puck retrieval guy.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, I'm happy doing that because I am, I'm not the goal scorer. I'm not going to dangle somebody. But if I can, serve a purpose,
Yeah.
that is, for him to say that meant a lot.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because I'm like, man, you play in Europe and you're like, you've got status out here. I have no status. And so but I knew it was my skating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I just focused a lot on that when I played hockey, that if I can out hustle and outwork anybody and I can skate, then I have a place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be the guy that's ever going to, be the guy for the team, and I was okay with that. I was happy just playing that role because I thought, nobody else really wants to do that.
Right.
They want to do their thing, and I'm happy to do that. So I really thrived and enjoyed it. And for whatever reason, I was good at skating. I still to this day don't know what it is exactly that allowed me to be as fast as I was, but I'm sure grateful that I had that.
Yeah.
You seem like you've always been like a team player, and even back to like, the family as a team. Like, was there something that kind of kicked that off, or you were just naturally always kind of want the better for everybody?
I probably didn't like the pressure when I was younger of being the only one. So like golf would have been hard for me. Tennis would have been a bit harder. I think having supportive people around me and encouraging me really helped me thrive as an athlete when someone's appreciating what you're doing or the role that you play on the team. I like that.
It's that self-awareness too, where you kind of knew like you were missing a certain piece, so you had to do.
Yeah, and when I was younger too, I was small. Like I was probably up until grade 10, smallest guy on my team. I could skate fast, I could do all these things, but I was small. And I thought, okay, what am I going to, like in my own mind, what am I going to do to try and have get my team motivated or do something out here to be a difference maker? Mm-hmm. And I remember, when I was at boarding school, we'd go to warm-ups and I'd look across at the other team and I go, who's the biggest guy? Okay, and of course I'm scared. Like, I'm like, okay, but I got to go hit that big, like my first chance, I better hit him.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, I can get on him fast. Those big guys sometimes are slow. And I remember in one tournament we were in and I thought, okay, I'm a third line guy. We only had 3 lines. What am I going to do? Okay, go hit the big guy. So I went over and, we're out on the ice and I go hit him. I probably, go flying, whatever, and maybe he gets stopped. But I do remember in between periods, going to the change room and the guys are like, did you see him hit that guy? Like, what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was thinking, if that inspires you some way, like that's great. I'm doing my job out here. And so... But it was not always fun because that big guy found me later on.
Yeah. Took your number.
It's
probably a little different back then too.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not as painful. I would say getting hit wasn't the painful part. It was just thinking about it before you get hit.
Know what's coming.
Right? Like I've had some big guys hit me, and I remember thinking, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was more the thought of them hitting you. Mm-hmm. But that experience, that positive feedback I got from my teammates, now that informed me as an athlete going forward, I thought, okay, I know what I can do.
Yeah.
I know what I can do. And I always, I geared my game maybe subconsciously around that I would, when I played, I'm like, okay, I got to get the good guy on my line, the puck.
Yeah.
I got to help the goal scorer get the puck. Like, I need to know where they are. And I got to go down to the corner and get that puck off of that D guy and battle him however I can and try and make their life better.
You had to be uncomfortable, and you were used to being uncomfortable because of all these other moments that happened.
Yeah, I didn't always... I mean, you don't want to be hit, but sometimes you need to be hit to get into the game. It's sometimes, okay, now we're on. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
You had to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it's a very unselfish role, too, right? It's not the flashy role, but it serves a major purpose in hockey. And I mean, the thing I find most interesting about it is how you leaned into it. I think you see a lot of kids that struggle with focusing on the skills that they're not good at, and that consumes most of their energy. Is like, I'm a bad stick handler. And that's all they think about, instead of saying, hey, I do have this piece that's really clicking, and building confidence around that and pushing forward as that sort of, backbone of your game. Now, at the same time, obviously there's a balance there of being aware of saying, hey, like, I could put a little bit more time into my stick handling, try to bring that a little bit closer.
Yeah.
So that's the question I wanted to ask is, obviously training has evolved, and there's all this specific, training now for stick handling and speed and all these different pieces. It's really been broken down into a lot of different segments. Looking back on that, so obviously, again, credit to you, really leaned into the speed and found the perfect role for it and allowed that to continue your career. How was it on the other side? Did you think about the stick handling and some of those other things that you wanted to work on? Was it a combination of just the training wasn't really there, or how did you go about those parts of your game?
So, the training opportunities weren't there.
Yeah.
So you just kind of go with your strengths.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't say I was like someone in practice who would try and work on stick handling. But if I was to, go back, I'd probably say, hey, I probably should have spent more time working on that. Even like get better at sauce passes, being able to do them in tight spaces and do them quickly.
Right.
Being able to handle the puck a little quicker, because I was a winger, you got to retrieve it off the boards, but having that ability to look first, get the puck, look again, like I could have worked on those things to make my game better. But it just at that day and age in sports, that didn't happen. Like, you would go to a hockey camp, and that's your off-season training.
Right.
And then other than that, you're out playing with your friends.
Yeah.
You know, like that. So I didn't have that opportunity, and I didn't think about it. That, you know, that, I better spend some time maybe in the garage or in the driveway just stick handling. I was more like, I want to go and play with somebody. Let's go do that. So if I was an athlete now, you know, if I had the right guidance, I probably would.
Well, I think that's a big part of it too, is that's where the coach can really step in, right? And say, hey, you know, Tony, you're unbelievable with your speed. We got to keep, you doing that and continuing to execute on that role that's adding a lot of value to the team. Compliment sandwich, but at the same time, hey, like, we've got to prioritize putting a little. But as a young kid, sometimes it's very difficult to see those things, and I think that's where, you know, you said guidance, where a coach could have, you know, maybe stepped in a little bit and helped. But again, it is challenging when you don't necessarily have all the individualized training that you have now. You know, a lot of coaches back then, and not saying it's wrong, it's just they were probably predominantly focused on systems and that type of stuff, right? So it just wasn't part of sports. Right.
Like parents were not paying for a private hockey session to train.
Right. Yeah.
Parents were not paying for a stick handling thing. Parents were not taking their kids to shooting. We didn't have shooting alleys.
Right.
Like, you know, these indoor places I know we have in Edmonton where you can go practice your shooting and get you know, that sort of training.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't on people's radar.
Right.
It's evolved that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, now those opportunities are there. But I don't know. It allowed me to do other things.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you gain other skills, and that could have been where your speed came from, because maybe it's all the rugby and the cross country.
Well,
I mean, you're probably naturally fast to begin with, but
I was not a fast runner when I was young. No, I finally got some good speed when that last year I played rugby. And I think it had to do with, as part of my training for rugby, is I'd run up hills and run down.
Yeah.
So you run up and you build power, but when you're running down a steep hill, if you don't keep your feet under you, you're going to like face plant.
Right.
And I remember I would do that as part of my training. And I actually think that's what helped me, because for years, like, I played football. I couldn't catch, like, guys that were fast running. I couldn't catch them, but I could beat some of these guys who I played hockey with. I could beat them. No problem. And I couldn't quite understand what was different from running to skating, but I could beat them. And, you know, I only realized I had a little bit of speed when I was 20, and I did that as part of my training. It's really weird. I don't quite understand it. I don't know why it happened.
Now, was that off-season training driven completely by yourself, or was there a program that was given by the rugby team, or?
I did it.
You did it?
I was like, I thought I want to do well, and so I had my own little training regime. There was a ravine we had near our house, and I'd run down the ravine. There'd be a hill. I'd run up the ravine. I would come to another place, and I'd do like some handstand push-ups and sit-ups, and then and the whole goal was don't stop. Keep pushing yourself fast the whole time through. And this would take like half hour, 45 minutes. I mean, I don't know how I did it. I mean, there's no way I could do it now.
Yeah.
But that would be after I cycled home. So I remember that summer I worked for Nielsen Chocolate Bars. It was in shipping and receiving. And some days it's easier than others, but there would be days when a rail car of peanuts would come in. And these are 100-pound peanut bags. And you go out to the rail car and you're unloading them. And I would do that all day. And I'd already cycled to work. I'd cycle home, and then I'd either go to rugby training or I would go do my own training. I just did it on my own. I just did it because I wanted to do well.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be happy just kind of giving it half.
Right.
Or giving it 3/4. For whatever reason, at that stage, like, I was driven. I was driven to want to do well at what I was doing. Same as in rugby. I wasn't the best guy out there, but I knew I had a place. You know, I had my place, and I was the youngest guy on that team. And I thought, hustle is my game. Hustle. If I can hustle and get around the field and just, tackle guys to give other players opportunities or whatnot, then that's my game. So I just always knew that was my game. So fitness was a big part of me being able to play. If I wasn't fit, what was I going to do?
Right.
I was, in rugby, they're great kickers. I couldn't kick.
Right.
I didn't have the east-west shiftiness of some of the guys on my team. So I was like, I'll just give me the grinder role. I'm good with that.
And now was it even recommended by coaches at that point for off season? Like, would they even say, hey guys, like, try to do something in the off season, but
Don't
you
just
have
drink
to figure
beer.
don't drink beer. Like, you've got to figure it out, or is it just
Don't
sort
train
of
for the post
right
game
the clubhouse,
stuff. Let's train for the on field stuff. Yeah.
or was it just see you next year and you had to put all those pieces together?
I'm sure Dean said, like, you got to work on your game on your he would have said you got to work on your game on the off days.
Yeah.
And I would work on fitness. And he would want me to work on because you're a hooker, you do the throw-ins. So he would say, I'd want you to work on your throw. I really didn't. I should have done that, and I didn't. But I would work on fitness all the time. That was my thing, fitness. And really, I didn't realize it at the time, but it would be some strength training, but not like really serious strength training.
Right.
But that was more what I was doing. And then I'd use the Tuesday, Thursday for skill, working at practice, and Sunday or Saturday games would be, again, a combination of the two.
How did your nutrition play into this? Like, was mom still making meals at home when this was
Yeah,
going on?
my mom. So I was lucky. Like she would, when wherever kids at her home, my mom would be making dinner, and she's good. Like, my mom is a fantastic cook. She would tell you she does not like cooking, but man, she knows how to make great things. I think my mom, it was important to her that her kids were eating well.
Yeah.
And my dad was more concerned about the volume. Are you eating enough?
You were active enough where, you needed the calories.
He would always be saying, bulk up. And my dad would be, if there was leftovers, my dad would say, right, Anthony, you can finish that. Come on, finish it up. And so I would finish it up. And I mean, I remember at that age, like, I couldn't put on weight if I wanted to, probably. But, my mom was always great that she made sure that there was food. She'd feed, make meals. I mean, she would do dinners, really. It was my job and it should be at age 20 to make breakfast and make my lunch.
Yeah.
But she was okay with making dinner, which I think I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
That's probably the one meal all of us don't like making is a dinner.
Right.
But breakfast, lunch, no problem.
Do you think it was like your parents' upbringing, like with being from Ireland, with food scarcity at certain times, that made them want you to eat, or like they thought you were too skinny, or he just wanted you to be bigger?
Well, because it was always so small, I think my dad was he didn't never said it, but I'm sure he's concerned, is my son going to get physically bigger?
Yeah.
Because my dad was, he's like 6'1" and probably in his prime 190 pounds, which is a good sized man. And there I was, while all my classmates were getting bigger, I wasn't. Well, it just worked out that I was a late bloomer and I grew later. So I think, maybe he was relieved or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's not, size isn't everything. I know that. There's, it's more about your mindset. As Don Cherry once said, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yeah,
and I think that's more important than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's, I wouldn't say like my parents grew up without, my dad at boarding school, my mom went to some boarding school. They're always fed. But I think also in that time and age, we're looking at a different era now where people didn't need as much. Like, you didn't have a lot of stuff, maybe with my parents, like, we eat, like, we get what we need. And, we always had plenty. So I think my parents just thought, we need to have food for everybody in the house. And my mom, in the way their marriage was, my mom was like, you let me be in charge of the home. You go out and you're in charge of work. And it worked for my parents. And it wasn't even like they had a discussion. It just,
They naturally
they naturally just went that way. And I think, I've heard my mom say to me once, we just knew, like, we knew. I knew what I was supposed to do. Your dad knew what he was supposed to do. And we just did it. Or as the British would say, we got on with it.
They were a good fit. Yeah.
They were. And, I think in hindsight, my mom and my dad, especially my mom, because she's the one I talk to a lot now, I think she will look back and go, that was just working. Like, but we just took it for granted that that's how it was.
Right.
You know, my mom will say, I don't understand why there's all these conversations with people about what they're doing in their marriage, blah, 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 blah. She's like, you just like, you do it. It's
Right.
your job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, Mom, it's true. Like, you got to find your way. Like, every marriage is different. You got to figure out who does what and who does the other thing, and then just appreciate the strengths of your partner.
Sounds
You know?
a lot like a sports team.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. You have to adapt. You have to find your place.
Yeah.
You've got to pull your weight where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Find some compromises
Yeah.
along the way too.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. There's things you give up things, right? When you're married, I actually think there is a lot of joy in sacrificing for the good of somebody else.
Right.
And it's not just your kids. Well, that's the easy one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's harder to sacrifice for a spouse.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they can, that can be a harder relationship. But, with my kids, I look at, there are times where maybe you don't get as much sleep, or you have to say no to something that you want to do because your kids are doing something. But I will never, in all the time that I've watched my kids play sports, I never regret going to see them play. Like, that is, it brings great joy. Like, it's a hard thing for me, but I love watching my kids do what they like to do.
Yeah.
That's
That's awesome. That's great.
that's why you're a dad.
Yeah.
That's a
Totally.
support
Let it
system
out.
That's so
Yeah,
important for
100%.
them. Like, they know you're always going to be there to support them, no matter whether it's athletics or, having their own family, whatever, someday. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
like I've told
Absolutely.
them, it's not, you don't have to be an athlete. I know they sit there and like, Dad, yeah, you're a hockey instructor, you do all these things and everything like that. Like, they see what I do, but I want them to be who they're supposed to be. I do not have. I love watching them play. If they're going to be, my oldest, she loves playing basketball. Great. I want you to go as far as you want with that. My middle one, she likes to do a lot of sports, but soccer is her main thing. Great. If that's your thing, I want you to go with it. My boy, he loves hockey, and he's happy doing it. He loves being with his friends on the team. I'm like, great, go do it. Let's go do these things. Yeah. But if you want to do theater, I want to come watch you. If you want to do, music, I want to come watch you. I want to participate in your life because, that's important to me to be able to see what you're doing and just see the great things that you're doing. I love watching that. So, I'm not stuck on sports, but my kids know that I like to be active. They know that I want them to be active, that they just need to be doing something.
Right.
They need to have something more than, we're not just going to school, doing our homework. I want you to be doing something else that you like to do.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned, finding your place and, specific maybe to teams. How have your kids been receptive to, what you talk about? I knew my strengths, I knew my weaknesses, I knew where I could fit on this team or that team. Do you instill that on them, and how receptive are they to that?
Well, as things come up, I might relate certain experiences to my kids. So, for instance, like my middle daughter, she's pretty competitive. Like, she wants to play sports and she wants to play at a high level. So last year she didn't make a volleyball team that she was hoping for, and she was upset about it. Fair enough. I'm like, yeah, you should be. Like, this is important to you. But I told her, honey, like, one year I didn't make the senior team in boarding school.
Yeah.
And, I had all these guys saying to me at school, hey, see you at practice. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not on the team. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I didn't make the team. For whatever reason, the coach, I didn't make the team. I said to my daughter, I didn't make the team, but you know what it did? It motivated me highly.
Right.
Like, now it was like, I'm going to show that coach who cut me. Like, it just gave me fuel.
Right.
And so with my daughter didn't make the volleyball team, I said, you know what you do? You go and be the best volleyball player that you can be. And you show those coaches that they made a mistake. Like, that's what you need to do. That's what I did. And I said, don't you, like, it's upsetting now. Great. Let's be upset now. Let's deal with this and be upset. And then tomorrow we get up and you go to practice for the other team and you show them they made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's now, and so I relate that to her. My oldest daughter, she's gotten into basketball this year, and she loves playing basketball, and she tried out for the senior girls team at our school, and she made the team as a practice player, and she's going to be helping out at their games as a manager. And for her, she wants to play. And I've said to her, you know what though, like, honey, you've got something. Like, now you've got an opportunity to work on your skills as a basketball player. And so in her mind, she's like, great, I'm going to make the most of what I've got here. I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like I got cut, or, life is hard at times. Don't give up. Stick with it. And she's going to. Yeah. I know my oldest. When she says yes to something, she says yes. And she will stick it out. And, for her, she set a goal where she's like, I'm going to play for that team one day. Well, she's still got 2 more years to go for high school. She's grade 10. And so she's wanting to get on be a player in the games. And I think, great, good for you. So I do try and relate, Taylor, certain lessons in life as they come up. Mm-hmm. And I've probably done some other things with my kids. I've probably said, we do hard things. Life is hard. Let's do hard things. And, every now and again I might hear my kids mentioning it. I'm thinking, okay, well, it sounds like we're getting some traction.
Right.
Over the summer, I would have my kids, even my older ones, they'd work on cursive writing, because a lot of kids don't know how to cursive write.
Or write in general.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
They're not teaching it anymore, correct?
I teach it. It's part of the curriculum, but it's, kids don't know how to sign their signature.
Right, I'm not joking. I think I don't know where I brought this up, but I used to do payroll when I worked at the Cardiff Golf Country Club, and there were times where I could not read the names, so I'm like, who am I paying? I don't even know. I know. I can't legibly print your name.
Like, I need the translation book. What does this scribble mean?
It looked like a different language.
Yeah,
I'm not joking. Like, I was like,
it's true.
Klingon
it's true.
Or something, for all I know.
It's, I'm surprised. And I make the kids in my class do it. I made my own kids do it. And then my son, I needed him to work on some math. Well, he was not this would be like before you do anything, you can have breakfast, but then you're not, like, my son really likes video games. I said, you're not touching anything until I see that done. And he did not like that. He was not happy about it. The first few times, I don't understand why I have to do this. And why is my sisters, they're not doing math? And I said, because they can do the math that I'm giving you. They know that. And what I did is I sat with him a little bit with it, and then eventually he was like, he'd get up in the morning and he'd do it, and he'd say, Dad, I'm done. Can I go do video games? And I'd say, okay, go for an hour. You can do that. And he did it. And I later on I came to him and I said, do you notice what you're doing now? Do you see how at the beginning you didn't like that, but now you're willing to get up? You understand that what is required of you here with me, and you'll do the hard work.
Yeah.
And I see him getting it. And I know he will work hard, but sometimes he needs to be put in that situation to find out what he's capable of. Because if he does have a choice, like, he's a great negotiator. My youngest is a fantastic negotiator. He will look, if he's got something he wants to accomplish, he will look for a path to get there, and it's usually the path of least resistance.
Which is human nature.
Yeah, well, I think we all are. But he's really, he's got great creative skills.
That's great.
And negotiation skills.
Future lawyer.
Like, he is, he's, I think, man, it's just innate in you. You kind of, you're always looking for the angle. And, sometimes you can't bypass what has to happen, the hard work that has to go into it. But he's willing to do that hard work of negotiation. And I, sometimes he has to take the hard path. And if I, at his age, still young enough that it's if he's got someone to do it with him, he'll do it, but he doesn't always like it. But I see him, all my kids, like they're getting used to it. They're accustomed to it. And I think that's such a great life skill to be able to handle those sorts of things.
Absolutely. Well, I thought it was such an interesting point that you made too, with dealing with some of that adversity, giving them time to be upset. I think in a lot of cases, especially maybe with men a little bit more, it's like, no, you can't be upset. You got to just park it, pack it in, don't let it out. I think that is a really important note of the balance there. You got to have an opportunity to get it out, right? And it sounds like for you it's 24 hours, maybe some days depending on the situation, it might be a little bit more. But I feel like that's something that's not talked enough about, is like you have to be able to express those emotions. You have to move on. You can't wallow in it forever, but give young athletes, young people the opportunity to actually get it out.
Yeah, well, in my personal life, my kid's mom and I were not together anymore, and there was same thing. There was a time there you have to grieve that.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're not going to move on.
Right.
And I knew that before this happened, and when it happened for me, there's grieving, but I got to do that on my own.
Right.
And I have to help my kids through that.
Right.
And that's a long process, right? You don't just cry once and that's it. Like when you've been together for 18 years, married for 16, it's not like one cry session and you're done.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing it over and over and over again. And I think, that experience has helped me inform with my kids, but I also think I had it before. I'm like, you know what you do? You need to get it out.
Yeah.
But then you need to move forward.
Right.
Because we can't get stuck. You don't want to live there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're there and then you move forward and then you're there again. And then you move forward and you're there. Like it might be a revolving door for a while.
Right.
But I do believe there's some value in that.
Yeah.
And I also think there's value in saying, okay, we got it all out. Let's go. We got to take what we learned from this, whatever happens that, it's hard on your emotions, but you've got to take what you've learned from it and move forward with it. And I try and allow my kids to do that. I try and allow my students to do that. Heck, I do it with my friends, like if there's something they're going through and you sit with them. Right. Sometimes it's not about like, hey, let's solve the problem. Sometimes it's about sitting with them in it and letting them, they might just need to talk about what's going on, right? To get it out. But I do think it's healthy, and it's something when I, growing up in my household, we didn't do really that. But I, for whatever reason, learned, like I had good guy friends growing up, and we would share things, and I just continued to do that, and I'm really lucky, with a lot of the guy friends I have now, we do that.
Right.
And it's, it's not always earth-shattering stuff, but I think it's good to share and you compare notes, or somebody says, hey, have you thought about this? Or, yeah, I can understand why that's challenging. Oh, yeah, I've been through this. Here's how I navigated it. All those sorts of things. Even just talking about it helps you process it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just getting it out.
Yeah,
right.
I think so. I think you need to. And my dad never really shared he didn't share anything with me. And, I will say I wish I had heard a little bit more from him. He did a great job modeling a lot of things to me. But I also think as a kid, hopefully you take a lot of the good that your parents give you and then you try and raise it one level. So maybe me trying to improve on what my dad, hopefully, I'm sure there's things I do wrong that hopefully, I'm still moving the bar up a bit. But my goal with my kids is I want to have dialogue. I don't want them to feel alone.
Yeah.
I want them to feel like they're supported. I want them to feel like they're encouraged. And sometimes, that's talking about the hard things.
Right.
Being uncomfortable.
Yeah, like it's not everybody likes to sit in emotion.
No.
They don't want, I don't like the feeling of it. It's not happy.
Because you're vulnerable at that moment in time.
And you're absolutely right, Matt. Like, not everybody wants to be vulnerable. Not everybody's comfortable with that. And I think, man, but that's where your greatest breakthroughs can happen.
Yep.
Like who you are as a person, you hit a new level, or you find out something about yourself that you didn't know you had. You think you can't handle certain things, or it's really upsetting, and then you go through it and you're like, okay, like, that didn't kill me. I can handle hard things. Doesn't mean I have to like them.
Yeah.
know?
It's like you getting hit by the bigger guy. Like,
Yeah.
you like it, but hey, sometimes you gotta do it, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the sacrifice.
And sometimes too, you're doing it to take the attention off of other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I remember, if
Yeah.
I can get somebody mad at me, then my good player, he's
Right.
not going to pay attention
Totally.
to me.
Yeah.
But with my kids, I'm like, sometimes if I can have someone, or the hardship fall more on me, then maybe it's, it helps my kids when things happen with their mom and I, that maybe, it's not so bad. They don't feel lonely. They've got someone to carry part of the load
Right.
with them.
Well, and earlier, Tony, you mentioned faith. Obviously we've gotten to know you a lot better over the course of this interview, and it seems like you're a big picture, team first guy all around. Just curious how your faith layers into your perspective on those things.
Yeah, so I didn't go to church growing up or anything. I came, I decided to go to church, and God would be a part of my life when I hit my early 30s. And, I really see, as I have, I've read the Bible once, and as I read through different parts of Scripture, there's a lot of stuff that really I feel applies to life. In the Bible, Jesus says we will all go through hardship. Nobody escapes it.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely right.
Right.
It's how you go about going through it. And for me, I feel that, there's something greater than me, which is God.
Right.
God has a plan for my life. And as I go through life, just take it day by day, whatever needs to be revealed that day that I'm supposed to do, or, the people I'm supposed to be with, then help me just to be the best man that I can be.
Right.
And there are things in the Bible that I believe are a great compass. It talks about, loving people, serving people. And there's also other stuff in the Bible that, there's killing in the Bible and things like that, but it's not bad. And I really look at it as a great compass. Like, I just feel like my faith guides me. Mm-hmm. It directs me. It's shown me how to be a better human being. And I hope that, it doesn't mean it solves my problems. And sometimes I think people think, oh, well, God didn't heal this person in my life.
Right.
I can't explain that. I don't know why some people miraculously get healed and some don't. And there are miracles in the medical profession. Mm-hmm. Things happen that we can't explain. I don't know why it happens. But I know that there's some being greater than me that knows a bigger picture than I do, that there's a reason for it all.
Right.
And I just believe that and trust in that. And it's been really helpful for me. It helps me with my day-to-day living, knowing that I'm not in control, somebody else is. Right. My job is to respond to people with love and kindness and with patience and be faithful. And I think in the end, it will carry me through life and into eternity in a really good way.
Yeah. Do you find, you teach at Millwoods Catholic, and do you find that, some exposure, I'm obviously not a teacher there, but I'm sure you guys have some faith curriculum in the program. Yeah. Do you find that to be quite beneficial for younger kids to be exposed to it?
I do. So I work Millwoods Christian School.
Sorry.
Be more the Protestant stream of Christianity. But I tell the kids in my class, I'm like, you guys don't realize how an advantage you have that I didn't have.
Right.
Like, when I was growing up and things weren't working out, I didn't have some way of, having encouraging words. or some ways of just understanding there's something greater than myself that is, orchestrating everything. And, I said, really think it's like, I'll come back to it. It's such a great compass. There are so many in the Bible, and I can't always quote verses, but I know that there's the fruit of the Spirit. Like if you are praying and you're making, God an important part of your life or the primary part of your life, and you spend time with them every day, there's joy, there's love, there's peace, there's gentleness, there's kindness, there's self-control, there's faithfulness, and there's patience. Like those are called the fruit of the Spirit. Those things, when you align yourself with how God wants you to live, those things come out of you. It doesn't mean you're a perfect human being. We're always having to work on ourselves till the day we die. Mm-hmm. And no Christian is perfect, for sure. But if they are living their faith out as they should be, like those things should be coming out of us. And I just think, who would argue that those are good traits to aim for?
Right.
And so, now I have something to hang my hat on. It gives me some direction. And there's lots of other things, lots of other parables or stories in the Bible that teach a lesson on, generosity. Even today I'm at church and they've been for the past month talking about generosity and that, everything we get, we've been given these things by God. My income, my job, that's God's. I need to figure out what he wants me to do with it. And it's not about keeping everything. Mm-hmm. It's about giving everything, or giving as much as you can. Of course, you got to pay your bills, all those sorts of things. But when you start serving and taking care of other people, because there's always somebody less fortunate than you, right? You're living out what God wants you to do. And psychologists would tell you that people who do that are some of the happiest people.
Right.
Well, if the Bible, obviously, it doesn't talk in psychological language, but the things that it tells you is like, if you do those things, you're going to experience great health. You're going to experience joy. But it doesn't mean that things don't work out. Like life isn't hard. And I think I'd rather live that way.
Yeah.
And try and live my life on a day-to-day basis that way than, I don't know, some other way.
Yeah.
Right. And it teaches me to look outside of myself. And I mean, we can all be selfish, and I need it. I need that advice because sometimes I feel that way. And it's good just to have that to keep me on track, and have something that I'm working towards every day.
Yeah.
Sounds like the common theme is like, we need purpose.
Yeah.
We need purpose in life, whatever avenue you kind of get it from. You need that piece for sure. It has to be more than just you.
And this is even people who don't believe. I truly think they have there is something in them that they are put on earth here to do. We are not random. We didn't just show up here randomly. We didn't even show up today randomly here together at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we're here today.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not an accident.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for people. We're all here for a purpose. Some of us get a little lost because we're caught up in, I want to be recognized this way, or, I didn't grow up and get attention, and so now I'm going to go out and do everything I can get to get attention. And that person might be lost because really their purpose is not that. It's something else.
Right.
But because of a hurt or a trauma in their life, they're trying to fill that void. Mm-hmm. Right? People can get lost that way. But then I think if you're, this is where my faith is, if you're tapped into God and you're like, God doesn't speak in loud noises. Rarely does he come to you and go, hey, I'm going to hit you over the head. It's something quiet, or you're led in a little way here and there. And then all of a sudden, you're navigating your ship through the waters, and you're over here. Whereas if you'd done it on your own, you would have been here. Mm-hmm. And I do think that everybody has a purpose, but sometimes you get lost.
Right. Yeah. It's just a matter of finding it.
We're not here randomly.
Right.
Like, to me, I'm like, why would we just be here randomly? Like, does that make sense to me? Like, there's just pure randomness to the world.
Well, and like you said, it's at the very least, it's just such a powerful compass to have. and it just allows that backbone, that common thread to exist in so many different dimensions, if not every dimension of life.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it really works.
Yeah.
And I think it helps with, the things that I'm doing in life.
Yeah.
I do, my job is people.
Yeah.
I'm in the people business. It's not education, it's people for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in a school where, you can talk about your faith, and I can, try and unpack it for the kids, how I see it. But I think it's also outside of there. Like when I just don't think anybody's life is without some kind of reason to it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't see humans that way.
Yeah.
I see people getting lost along the way, maybe not tapping into their purpose or feeling hurts. Like, I'm hurt this way in my heart, in my soul. I need to fill it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up poor. I need all the money, and I can't share my money.
Right. Yeah. Or whatever the compensation.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But and it's usually stuff from our childhood. But I think, no, there's something in you. You have a gift. It doesn't make you famous. You got a gift, though. Something that's going to just resonate in you, that when you find it and you starting to live it out, you experience a joy in your life that you just can't explain. It's there because you're where you should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of touched on this a bit in that last answer, but would you say, the increase in practicing your faith has made you a better educator and coach? It maybe propelled you into going to that direction of being a giver and, giving back in that sense, in tutelage, whether it's sports or in education.
Yeah, I think so. I also think, even though I'm not married anymore, I think that really taught me a lot. Like those two pieces, I think helped me grow up a lot, and I'm still got work to do. I mean, there's things I need to get better at. But it's really helped me move myself forward, move the needle in the right direction in my life. And I hope that I can just keep doing that. And it's hard work. I do things that are out of my comfort zone sometimes. And, it's still really meaningful to me that I'm trying to better myself. And, I need to better myself for the kids that come to my class.
Right.
They deserve that.
Yeah.
My own personal kids, for sure. If anybody deserves it, those guys do.
Yeah.
Right. And for my friends, my family, those things, it's just important to me to try and be better.
Yeah.
Right. And it has helped me grow up. It's amazing. I thought, I got married a little later. I was like 38 when I got married, and I thought, oh, okay, now the good times happen, and I realized, oh gosh, there is so much. Like, no, it's not. It's hard work happens.
Yeah.
And it really helped me to learn those things. I've always learned better by actually experiencing things and sitting in a classroom. So,
Right.
It did teach me a lot of things that I couldn't have learned anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for it, even though in the end, we're not together, but we're still a different family now, and I've got my kids. I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And now just move forward and see what's next.
Well, speaking of the classroom, Tony, obviously we've learned today that the students that are able to go through your classroom each year are extremely lucky. I know I've seen it on the ice when we've done sessions together. We really appreciate your time today, and it's been an awesome conversation, and thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. It's a real treat to be here.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
To help support the community, please visit our website at usports.community and follow us at usportscommunity on all social media.
You can also follow and rate our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Audible. Subscribe and like our video feed on YouTube.
Links for all our platforms can be found in the show notes.
Best way to help grow the youth sports community is to comment on and share our content with your fellow parents and athletes.
This episode was produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration was provided by Earthwater.
The youth sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Ma Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Bird & Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive 15% off your next order, please visit birdandbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
We look forward to you joining the community next time.